4.2, solving systems of linear equations by substitution. Solve the system, practice 3. And then we have x plus 3y equals 6 and 2x plus 3y equals 10. So these are just linear equations, which means they're just two lines. Well, two lines are going to do three things. One of three things. They are either going to intercept at some point, which is what we're doing in this chapter. We're looking for where do they meet. Okay, that's what all of chapter 4 is doing. Where do they meet? All right, so that's going to be one thing. They're going to meet at one point, and you'll get that point. You'll get an x and a y, 1 point. Or they're going to be two lines that never meet, which are what type of lines? Parallel. So if they never meet, then you're going to have no solution. And then the other option that will happen is the two lines will end up being the exact same line. If they're exact same line, then they're going to have infinite solutions. All right, so those are the three things that could happen. 1 point as your answer, no solution because they're parallel, or infinite solutions because they become the same line. All right, so this section is over substitution. In this chapter, you can choose the method that you like and just stick with it the whole time. You don't have to try all the different methods. You just choose one of them. All right, so this is my favorite. This is my favorite of the whole chapter. It's like solving a puzzle. All right, so we need to solve for one of these letters because we can't solve this equation, this first equation, because it has two letters. There's an x and a y in it, so we can't solve it. Just x equals 2. We can't do that because there's another letter. Same thing with that one. We can't solve that one because there's two letters. So therefore, I have to get one of these letters all by themselves. Well, this letter right here seems to be the one that's going to be the easiest to get by itself because it's just x. Here, I know that if I want to get rid of this 3y, if I want to get y by itself, then I'm going to have to divide off that 3. Well, sometimes when we divide off a number, it becomes a fraction. And when it becomes a fraction, I know some students don't like it. They get a little scared when they get fractions, but it's okay. But it's just easier to get rid of the one that doesn't have a number in front of it. So we're going to take this first equation, x plus 3y equals 6, and we're going to solve for x. So if we're going to solve for x, we just do it algebraically. We're going to get this positive 3y to the other side. Well, it's positive, and I want to move the whole thing. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract it off. Well, I can do that as long as I do it to both sides. I can't do it to one side and not the other. So now that's all that's left over here is just x equals, and over here is negative 3y and a positive 6. So now we have x all by itself. So we're going to now go to our second equation, or the other equation that we have not used. It just depends on whichever equation that you use. So we're going to go to our other equation that we have not used and write it down. All right, so we know that the first equation is x equals this. X equals that. So what is this right here? This is all x. X is that. All right, well, this is two terms, so we remember if we have more than one term, we got to put them in parentheses. So we got to put this guy in parentheses. And this whole thing right here equals x. Well, since we know that this whole thing equals x, we're going to take this whole thing, and in place of x in this equation, we're going to plug it in. We're going to plug in that expression right here, negative 3y plus 6. So, in this first equation, we have 2 times x, or this other equation, and we know that the x is multiplying, so therefore we're going to have to put whatever we have in parentheses to show that it's multiplying. Well, x equals negative 3y plus 6, so we're going to put negative 3y plus 6 in our parentheses, plus 3y, bring this down, equals 10. So all we did is take this second equation that we had, and in place of x, we plugged in what we knew x equaled from over here. Now, what would you do? Now we just solve. What's the first thing you do? Well, these are being multiplied in parentheses, so we're going to have to distribute this 2. That 2 is being multiplied to both of them. So we now have negative 6y plus 12. Bring down our plus 3y equals 10. What would you do next? How about combine like terms? We have a positive 3y and a negative 6y. So we add those together and we get negative 3y. The 12 doesn't have a partner over here, so we'll just bring him on down, equals 10. Now we only have one variable, so we just solve algebraically because there's only a y. So solve algebraically. We gotta get the y by itself, so we have a positive 12 here. We're gonna do the opposite. We're gonna subtract 12. If we do it to that side, we gotta do it to this side. You can't just do one thing to one side, you gotta do it to both. So we're left with negative 3y on this side, and 10 minus 12 is negative 2. Uh-oh. We're about to have a fraction. It's okay, folks. All right, negative 3 times y, they're multiplying, so we gotta do the opposite to get rid of it. We're gonna divide by negative 3y. Remember, negative divided by negative makes a positive, and 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1 times y is just y. So that leaves just a y over there. If I divide that side by negative 3, I divide that side by negative 3. Negative divided by negative makes a positive, and we cannot do anything with that, so we have y equals 2/3. So our first point, because we're always looking for where they meet, is our y is 2/3. So in place of our y, we're going to put 2/3. Now we know what y equals. Y equals this. Well, over here we solve for x equals, and now we know what y equals, so we're going to plug in place of this y right here, we're going to plug in our 2/3 into this equation that we had already solved for x equals. So we're going to have x equals negative 3, but in place of y, we know what y is now. Y is being multiplied, 2/3 plus 6. Oh my gosh, I have a fraction. It's okay if you have a fraction. Remember, you can't multiply a whole number by a fraction, so we're going to change this whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. Remember, when multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across. 3 times 2 is negative 6, and 1 times 3 is 3. However, we also know that we can cross cancel right here. Both of those have a 3, one on top and one on bottom, so they're going to cross cancel, leaving this with a 1 and this with a 1. Negative 1 times positive 2 is negative 2. 1 times 1 is just 1. I don't need that 1 there, do I? It's just negative 2. Negative 2 plus 6. So what's x equal? Negative 2 plus 6 is positive 4. Therefore, our point that they intercept, where these two lines intercept, is going to be 4 and 2, and 4 for x and 2/3 for y.